night trying to keep my eyes open. The generator's busted and the AC's broken. I'm talking to the Lord, hope he helps us get there safe. And we made it to the show, now we're singing to the crowd. We're playing encore and they're screaming real loud. Try to get home early, but I know that ain't the case. Yeah, it's another hotel room, sleeping on the floor. I'm hurting in the morning from the night before. Pay my dues, I'm eating love the road. I'm coming home, baby, leave the porch light on. Breakfast in the morning from 7 to 9, but we just can't seem to wake up in time. We grab a cup of coffee and we're off to hit the road. Now we're running on fumes, no time to kill. We got one more show and it's a shitty door deal. Breaking my back just to make a couple more. Yeah, it's another hotel room, sleeping on the floor. I'm hurting in the morning from the night before. Pay my dues, I'm eating love the road. I'm coming home, baby, leave the porch light on. Yeah, it's another hotel room, sleeping on the floor. I'm hurting in the morning from the night before. Pay my dues, I'm eating love the road. I'm coming home, baby, leave the porch light on. Yeah, it's another hotel room, sleeping on the floor. I'm hurting in the morning from the night before. Pay my dues, I'm eating love the road. I'm coming home, baby, leave the porch light on.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you want to know why I'm here today? It's not because I want to give you a pep talk or because I want to make you feel good about yourselves. No, I'm here to tell you the truth.
Hey, everybody. Welcome in for the evening. It is, again, a nice, slow start for the evening. I'm chilling with a good drink. I'm feeling a little randy with anticipation tonight. I don't think it's going to be a wild show, but I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to share the evening with you. Thanks for checking things out. I have been super busy. Today was a crazy day for me. I put out a lot of videos. I thought I'd show you a little bit about what I'm working on behind the scenes. Let me put that up on screen. I thought I had it queued up. Oops. No, let's not play that song again. Come on now. Let's go here and let's add. Give me a moment to collect my shit together. All right. This, yeah. Is that the layout that I want? I feel like that's not the layout I want. Maybe it is the layout I want. Why am I having problems? That's the layout I want. Thank you so much. It takes me a while to get there. Yeah, by the way, the intro song is Josh Malloy. That was called Porch Light by Josh Malloy. It's a great song. I paid YouTube Music to have it, and I get flagged every time I use it for copyright violation, and every single time I have to submit to YouTube saying I bought the guy's song and has rights to use it as long as I want to, and every single time the music company that owns the song, the record company, I guess, that employs Josh Malloy, says, yes, he has the right to use it. And we have to do that every time I use his song. But I really dig the song. I like him. I hope that you will check him out. Josh Malloy, great music, great song. And so somebody busted my balls the other day saying, oh my God, that's so annoying, your song. I'm like, I'm sorry you don't like it. Fast forward a few minutes. I guess if you're live, you can't really fast forward. Must check out Lana's lives on the Patterson book. Let's see. Must check out Lana's lives on the Patterson book. She has very interesting insights and thoughts. I'm also reading the Patterson book. If you don't know, you probably do know. I haven't seen Lana's stuff on the book. She probably has already finished it, right? I'm doing it pretty much a chapter every week or a couple chapters every week. So I go through it at a pretty slow pace and do about 40-minute videos on each chapter. So yeah, I might have to check her out sometime. In fact, one of the things that I've been doing lately is for members only, I've been doing like watching other people's shows and doing commentary on their stuff on the fly. Maybe I'll do that with one of her videos and see, although I have to make sure I've read the chapter that she's commenting before we go there. Are you going to Chrycon in 2025? I don't know. I do not know about Chrycon 2025. Tell me about it. Maybe you can't tell me about it here, but I'm intrigued. If it's something I should go to or consider, I'm intrigued. I have a little bit of flexibility in my schedule, so consider me intrigued about Chrycon 2025. Renee, thank you, by the way, for telling me congratulations on 5,000 subscribers. The channel's growing quickly. I don't know if it's growing quickly or not. It feels like it's doing okay. When I ask my friend ChatGPT to analyze my statistics, they say, you've got good growth and you're growing fast. And I'm like, fantastic. So I think you're right. But it just, from my perspective, when you're checking all the time, you're like, man, it just feels like it's freaking taken ages. But I think I should be happy. I am happy. I don't think I should be happy. I am happy with the growth of the channel. So thank you very much about that. Yeah, hitting 5,000 felt really good. In fact, I was at 499. I was at 4,999 for a while, for like an hour. And I was telling my wife, I was like, oh my God, I can't click over to 5,000. So she was with somebody over at her family's house. And she's like, hey, are you subscribed to my husband's YouTube channel? She's like, no, like you're going to become a member 5,000. And she did, and it rolled over and we celebrated together. It was kind of a cool moment. All right. Somebody says here, I feel like I'm not getting my fill of Luigi updates these days. Is anything happening with the case? Are things kind of chilling for now? I'm so glad you asked. Oh my God, I'm so glad you asked. Check it out. All right. So first of all, let me tell you a little bit about Luigi Mangione. Right here, this is the Give, Send, Go. You may or may not have heard this, the Give, Send, Go account. Recent donations, top donation. I'm going to show it on the screen. Look at this. Somebody donated $50,000 to the Luigi Mangione official legal fund. $50,000, the largest donation that has been made to date. Listen to the quote posted by the user who gave a $50,000 donation to Luigi Mangione. I already knew about the life-saving treatment denials of cancer patients, like my mom, and severely ill and elderly, and the Senate investigative report. I'd heard her crying of pain. It's always been messy. For legal purposes, this is unrelated to any litigation. $50,000 to Luigi Mangione. This accentuates the point that a lot of people in America feel like even if Luigi did what they say he did, let's not forget that at the Devil's Advocates that we believe in the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, and Luigi Mangione has not been convicted of a crime in the court of law and therefore has the presumption of innocence. But let's say that Luigi Mangione really did shoot Brian Thompson in New York City, the CEO of United Healthcare, and that the notes that explained why he did so is the reason why Americans all over the country are conflicted about how to feel about the situation, and view that act perhaps as some kind of act of heroism, because the policies of United Healthcare was killing millions of Americans over time based on their policies of denials of claim, and people were suffering. And so that there's a really big conflict in America, a really difficult conversation to have that we need to be extremely careful about. Kimberly is talking about, so we're going to spend a little bit of time on Luigi Mangione. Jury jury nullification is real, folks. Jury nullification, what does that mean, and what is the context of what I just said right now? Again, we're going to talk about Luigi Mangione. We're going to talk about Brian Koberger. We're going to talk about Rex Heuermann and his daughter, Victoria Heuermann. We're going to talk about all of that tonight. But since we're on Luigi, let's stay on Luigi for a minute. What they're saying with jury nullification is there is a situation, there is a mechanism in America where the jury is the ultimate decider of guilt or innocence. And so a court of law can present all the evidence that says this person committed this crime, yes or no. That's answer number one the jury has to answer. Yes, this person committed the crime as laid out in the law. And what is your sentence? That's question number two. And that sentence can be not guilty. That is what we call jury nullification. It's where the jury says, I know that they did violate the law, but they're not guilty because the law doesn't apply in this case. That is called jury nullification. It has happened a few times in America. In particular, it happened during the act of slavery, when Americans during the slavery years, when slaves would escape plantations or whatever and go on the run, and other Americans would hide those slaves from being captured by their owners because they didn't believe in slavery. Some of those people went to court systems for breaking the law, harboring a slave, and juries oftentimes would refuse to convict a person. Did you break the law of harboring a slave? Yes. And the verdict is not guilty. We're not going to hold the person accountable because the law shouldn't apply in this case. It's not a proper use of the law. And so that's the kind of shit that people are expecting to see happen potentially in Luigi Mangione's case. It may not go down that way, but a lot of people are hoping for that. Let's see. What else do we got in the comments? This is great. So yeah, you would love jury nullification, but can't imagine the jury having enough people to make it happen. Brianna, this is a good point. What is more likely to happen, in my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, but I do talk to lawyers on my show. You probably know I've had a few lawyers on my show before. What is more likely to happen, and I feel like the attorneys that I've talked to agree that this is more likely to happen, is not jury nullification so much, but hung jury, which is that can you find 12 New Yorkers who are going to convict Luigi Mangione and say that he's guilty and deserving of death. By the way, in the federal case, he's facing the death sentence in the federal case. Now, Luigi Mangione is also facing the state case, but in the federal case, Luigi Mangione is facing the death sentence for killing of Brian Thompson. And those are two separate votes by the jury. One, the jury has to agree that he is guilty of the crime. That's vote number one. And then if they agree that he's guilty of crime, they have to agree to a second vote, a completely second vote. Is the only punishment that is worthy of that act is death of that person. And so there are attorneys who, like me, believe that it's going to be hard enough for them to find 12 New Yorkers that are going to convict Luigi Mangione of the act in the first place. But if they do, it's really going to be hard for 12 jurors to find him guilty, that to the point that the only just course is to kill him. And so likely, there's a very likely possibility that Luigi Mangione will have a hung jury, both in the state case and in the federal case. That's a likely scenario. I don't know if I would call it likely, but it's certainly more likely than the jury nullification. Jury nullification would send a bigger message in America for sure. But hung jury is certainly possible. So and more likely to happen. So thank you for asking that. And I don't know if you need if anybody needs a clarification on the difference between a hung jury and jury nullification, we can cover that again. All right. Let's see. Doesn't one person result in a hung jury and a retrial? Yes. If 12 jurors cannot unanimously agree that he's guilty of the crime, that's going to be a hung jury. They will keep asking and keep asking and keep asking for a period of time. Go back to the drawing board until all 12 of you agree. If they finally give up and say, you know what, we can talk all day. We can talk all day and we're never going to get all 12 of us to agree. That'll be a hung jury. At which point, the government will have the option to retry Luigi Mangione and try again with a different jury. If that happens again, they could technically retry him a third time, a fourth time, a fifth time, a sixth time, as many times as they need to get all 12 jurors on some jury to convict unanimously. However, at some point, the American taxpayers get tired of paying for a trial that's useless. If there's a hung jury or two, and it becomes likely that no matter what they fucking do to put a trial together, someone's going to hang that jury every time, there'll be an appeal made. This is a waste of taxpayers' money. we're never going to find 12 people to convict Luigi Mangione. And so while they technically could do it until they finally get 12 people to do it, there could come a moment where just 2 hung juries is all it takes for them to say, we give up. We're not going to get 12 people to agree. So we'll see. All right, let's continue on. I wanted to show you how busy I've been lately. This is my channel on the Devil's Advocates. I'm going to hide the comments for a moment so you can see this a bit better. This is my channel on YouTube. Let me see if I can blow this up a bit. Look at how busy I've been lately. I want to start here. Down here at the bottom, there are 2 videos. I'm trying to not hover over it because it changed the thumbnails. Right here at the bottom, from 2 days ago, these were my 2 big videos, 7,000, 5,000 views lately. Top 5 reasons why Bill Thompson offered a plea deal. Again, I'm not going to get into the nuances tonight necessarily about what it means he offered the plea deal. And then the top 5 reasons why Bryan Kohberger pled guilty. It should be past tense, P-E-L-E-D, pled guilty, or pleaded guilty, E-D. It's a grammar mistake. Somebody busted my nuts for it. That's common. And then I've done the prologue of the frat murders of the Idaho 4. If you're looking at where I'm kind of circling over here on this side of the screen, that's a newer video from just a day ago. It's got a couple of thousand or a few thousand views. This is what kind of disappoints me a hair. Luigi Mangione and Rex Heuermann, my 2 other cases, just aren't taking off like Kohberger. Hear the Kohberger trial from some of you. Some of you believe Bryan Kohberger's trial is over. Why are we still talking about it? Well, the reason we're still talking about it is there's obviously interest in America, considering every time I talk about Bryan Kohberger, even after it's done, folks, it garners thousands of views. Whereas if I talk about Luigi Mangione, I get hundreds of views. If I talk about Rex Heuermann, such as up here, I get a couple hundred views. I talk about, Bryan Kohberger, I get thousands of views because it's still the hot topic. I just wanted to show you a few other things. For members only, you'll see these green tabs under here. I've got some new members in the room tonight, some people who just signed up recently. I've got members only content. I write letters every single week to Bryan Kohberger, Rex Heuermann, Luigi Mangione. Luigi Mangione has received one of my letters now. There's a letter log that Luigi Mangione puts out publicly to show whose letters he's received. He's acknowledged that he's received one of my 9 letters that I've sent to him. It's the only one that he's seen. He writes down every letter he gets, which means he's not just ignoring 9 of my letters. That's literally the first letter he got was the 3rd letter I sent to him, if that makes any sense. So every single week for members only, I read verbatim the letter that I write to these inmates, Bryan Kohberger in the Idaho 4, Luigi Mangione in the United Healthcare situation, and Rex Heuermann in the LISK, Long Island serial killer / Gilgo Beach murders. I write to these individuals. And if you want to know what I could possibly write to them, you need to be a member for like $3. It's not a lot of money. I had recently said, now look at this, I had recently said no more letters to Bryan Kohberger because I found out that for the first month I had the wrong address, and I started getting letters bounced after a month saying a wrong address. Then I had to correct that and send it to the right address. And then a month later, I started getting those letters bounced to, yeah, you've got the right address, but you don't have the inmate's number. For fuck's sake, you shouldn't have to have the inmate's number. If there's no other inmate other than Bryan C. Kohberger in that jail with the initials Bryan C. Kohberger, then they should know who it goes to. But they're playing games and they say, we don't know who that is. You have to have his inmate number. And so I gave up because I didn't think I was going to get his inmate number because the state of Idaho doesn't make it easy for you to find the inmate number. However, one of my users in this group, in this chat tonight, told me Bryan Kohberger's inmate number, and I don't know why I couldn't find it the first time I looked, but they found it, and I believe it's correct. So I've sent one last letter to Bryan Kohberger. He's going to be moved soon because his sentencing is coming up on the 23rd of July. I plan on being in the courtroom that day like I was for his plea. However, that's going to be a difficult day. I will tell you that right now. They said to expect 8 hours in court with a few breaks. Why would his sentencing take 8 hours? It doesn't take Hitler 8 hours to read the sentence against Bryan Kohberger. What that means to me is we are going to have victim impact statements, which means every family member who wants to get up and tell Bryan Kohberger to rot in hell and how he ruined their lives because of his heinous act, we got to listen to every single person do that. And I don't mean have to listen as I'm trying to besmirch the family. They have the right to have that moment and express their grievances. But it's going to be difficult for me, perhaps, to sit through 8 hours of people telling Brian Koberger to rot in hell, and it's going to be extremely emotional, lots of tears, and I will feel empathy for the families. I'm sure I will shed a tear in the courtroom as well, because I feel for the families. I want justice for the families. So I plan on being in the courtroom, but it's going to be a long, emotionally exhausting day, and I will hope to do a video and a live about my experience in the courtroom that day when I get back. I have to go early the night before. I have to camp out online. Last time I showed up at 3 o'clock in the morning to be in first, to be about fourth in line. I might show up at midnight this time and spend a good 8-9 hours in line before the doors even open. No, I don't think, Kimberly, that somebody asked here, Kimberly asked, can anyone speak up for Brian? No, because it's not a matter, it's not like, and I know you didn't mean it this way, but it's not like a wedding where it's like, if anybody has any objections, speak now or forever hold your peace. It's not like that kind of situation. The deal is already done. He's already admitted guilt. They've already said this is a done deal. And so the sentence is happening. The only reason why we're having the victim impact statements, which is, I believe, what's going to happen, they haven't specifically stated, but why else would we spend 8 hours doing that, is so that the judge can consider it when he's about to hand out his sentence. So if for some reason the judge was going to be lenient on Brian Koberger, what do you think the chances are Stephen Hippler is going to be lenient on Brian Koberger? Anyways, if he had decided not to give him life in prison without the possibility of parole on all 4 counts, and decided to give him only 10 years, for example, on each count of those for some reason, because there's a minimum of 10 years per person concurrent, so a minimum of 40 years for that plus the burglary charge. If he decided to be lenient, the victims have an opportunity to say, don't be lenient on this asshole. Give him everything that he's got coming with both barrels, and do not spare any rod. Give him every bit of it. Will BK speak? That's another question. Will he speak? It is possible. It is not required. I don't believe that the prosecution put in any stipulation that Brian Koberger had to admit to anything in confession. That's why on the stand, all he did was say yes, yes, yes to the answers. Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? And yes was the answer, not tell us where the knife is, tell us where the bloody clothes are, explain to something to show us that you did it, apologize to the families. Those things could have been stipulated. They were not. I don't expect Brian Koberger to speak at all. I don't expect it. I expect Brian Koberger to be very silent and stare at people and listen to them. I don't expect Brian Koberger to show emotion. I don't expect him to shed a tear. I don't expect him to say, I'm sorry. I expect him to stare at people while they talk, and they will be very, very harsh to him and look him in the eyes and be very, very harsh. A lot of them won't look him in the eyes. They'll look at a script and they'll read it. This is what I'm going to tell you. I've seen this play out before. A lot of people won't look him in the eyes. They'll just read from a piece of paper and they'll say their piece and they'll sit down. Some will look him in the eyes. Some will call him name. Now, what we want to have happen is, or I should say, not what we want. What we want to avoid is we want to avoid some kind of vigilante justice in the courtroom where somebody managed to somehow sneak past all the federal marshals, all of the sheriff's department, and everyone else, somehow snuck a weapon in and jumps the podium and goes to try to kill Brian Koberger right there in the courtroom. That could happen. This is a highly charged, highly emotional situation. Families are going to be furious. And when you watch victims weeping in front of you and you see their pain, somebody might be provoked to do something about it other than just allow Brian Koberger to go to jail for the rest of his life and avoid execution. So I wouldn't put it past you that some kind of shenanigans could happen, and that could be a crazy courtroom. If somebody decides to jump the bar and basically try to go choke out Brian Koberger or take him out on the stand, who knows what's going to happen. I wouldn't be terribly surprised in an emotionally charged case such as this to see that happen. All right, so what else do we have? He won't get to be now the plea deal with the judge cannot. Right. I think we've covered the questions that are in the room so far. Let's take a moment. I love that I'm getting some good questions and comments and feedback from the room. So this is a great opportunity to ask those questions. And here's this is a comment that's not really my wheelhouse, but Brian Wirch says he won't speak. He's a heartless coward. I understand that concept. It is correct. I think most likely he will not speak. I don't know if that speaks to cowardice. Again, and this is the part that's the difficulty, is many people believe that if a person first of all, many people think that in this country that if you've been accused of something that you did it, because people don't get arrested that didn't do the crime. That's the first fallacy people have. People also have the fallacy that if a person pleads guilty, it means they did it, because they have to say, yes, I did it. And a lot of people don't see any possibility in which a person could plead guilty to spare their own life because the state was going to execute them. So did Brian Kohberger admit to this? Simply because it allows him to live a life, right? And instead of being executed by the state, because they were going to basically not give him a fair trial. There's a scenario in which that's a possibility. There are a dozen other scenarios, which is why I made a video called Top 5 Reasons Brian Kohberger May Have Accepted the Plea Deal. And the top one was maybe he really did it. That was the top one. Number one, maybe he really did it. But there's 4 other reasons that Brian Kohberger could have accepted a plea deal that doesn't have anything to do with actual guilt. It has to do with basically buying time, avoiding punishment, and some options that are available to him if he pleads guilty, even if he didn't do it. And in this country, by the way, there's a loophole on the whole, and you don't have an appeal. This is what I like to do to educate people on my channel. So Brian Kohberger admitted guilt and waived his right to an appeal. So you think that that's it. It's not it, because there is one caveat that you're not understanding, which is that if, and this is what happened in the courtroom, Brian Kohberger admitted to what the facts are. You arrived on this day, you went into the house at this time, you executed these 4 people, and then you left the house at this time. If somebody ever comes forward in the future to prove that Brian Kohberger could not have been there at the time that they said, that whole deal is over. It is impossible to actually admit guilt to something you could not have done. People have been let out of prison before because later on they found out they could not have done the very crime that they admitted to doing. That happens in this country. So there is a possibility that somebody will come forward and say, oh, by the way, here's video of Brian Kohberger 10 miles away from the crime scene at the time you say it happened. He could not have done the things he had confessed to doing. Therefore, that's vacated. If it's impossible for him to do it, then his plea deal's out the window because he couldn't have done it. That is a scenario that could play out. And it could be a strategy. If the defense knows that they were out of time, that the judge was going to proceed with the trial, and Ann Taylor had told Hitler a million times, we are not ready to proceed to trial. And he said, we're going to go to trial anyways. You better be ready. But we're not ready to go to trial. You are ready. And then on the stand, when they took the plea deal, and if you didn't see it, this is a $1 million moment. I did a video on it. I froze the camera when it happened. At one point, when Hitler is going through all the stipulations that they have to agree to in order for them to accept a plea deal, he said, and did you have plenty of time to review the discovery? She just days before said, we don't have enough time to prepare for trial. We're not ready. And he knows that. And he said, did you have enough time to review the discovery? And Hitler looks up at her and smirks. He's laughing. He knows that her answer is no. But they've agreed, and he can't even say it with a straight face. He knows Ann Taylor has repeatedly said, we do not have enough time, Your Honor. We are not prepared to go to trial. You are rushing this murder conviction. Most murder convictions don't happen this fast. You're rushing it. We have not had time to review 51 terabytes of data that you've dumped on us for discovery. And so during the plea deal, though, Hitler looked at her and said, have you had enough time to review the discovery? He smiled, smirked, because it was funny to him. And she paused, kind of rolled her eyes and said, yes, Your Honor. It's a joke. The whole thing was a joke. They know that she didn't have enough time. But why was it done? For the same reason that you're missing when you say Brian Kohberger admitted to it. So obviously he's guilty. He just admitted to it. I will also tell you, Judge Hitler knows Ann Taylor didn't have enough time to prepare for the court. She told him that she didn't have enough time to prepare for the trial. And when he asked her, she lied when she said, yes, we've had enough time to prepare for trial. Ann Taylor lied, in my opinion, right to the judge's face. He knew it. She knew it. He laughed. She rolled her eyes. It was a moment where they both knew this is a lie. And why is it done? Because the plea deal that the state and the defense had agreed to would be off the table if they didn't agree to all stipulations, which is that there's no unfair trial here. You had plenty of time to defend your client. Yes, yes. And she has to say yes. If she said, no, Your Honor, we didn't really have enough time to prepare, we're forced into this deal, the plea deal is off. That's the way it works in America. You have to agree to every single question. So you must ask yourself the question. If his own attorney is, think about this for a moment. If his own attorney is willing to lie under oath to the judge and say, yes, we've had plenty of time for discovery, when he knows it's a joke because he's smirking when he asks her, she rolls her eyes and pauses when she answers and says, yes, Your Honor, the whole thing's a lie and he knows it and she lied to him under oath. And we all let it happen. But you can't accept the possibility, some of you in America, that Brian Kohberger might also have pled guilty to something and lied about what he did. Because you know that, because you've already concluded before it started that he was guilty. All right. Wow. I've noticed that despite the fact that I just went on a rant and spent a lot of energy on that nobody is talking. Like it's dead silent in the room. All right. Let's see. Do I think that the plea deal may fast track him on the Innocence Project? They can look at the DNA evidence and Cy-Ray data that was disallowed from the defense. I don't know. Cy-Ray is the mystery. Cy-Ray is the $1 million mystery. Cy-Ray was going to come on to stand. Hitler called him a conspiracy theorist, even though he literally wrote the book on timing advance records. And then Cy-Ray's gotten silent. If Cy-Ray comes out after the plea deal and says, by the way, I can prove definitively Brian Koberger wasn't where you said he was at the time, and he can prove it, then that's going to change everything. But I don't know if he's going to do that. I've heard rumors that Cy-Ray is going to go on some YouTuber's channel, maybe Lana from Truth and Transparency. I don't know. Some YouTubers got Cy-Ray lined up to talk. So if he's lined up to talk, he probably isn't going to exonerate Brian Koberger, or why would he be going on some YouTuber's channel? We'll see. Now, this one didn't finish. Brianna didn't finish this thought. Thinking about Luigi, I'm struggling because he's innocent until proven guilty. But if he's found guilty, and then you didn't finish the thought, you meant to finish it. Oh, here we go. You did finish it. If he's found guilty, I wouldn't want him to do any time. How to justify or explain that without saying some murder should be allowed is a fine line, and I don't know how to speak on it. Brianna, I will try to do my best to give you a voice. What that means in America is what I talked about, which is jury nullification, which is that sometimes a murder is justified and the law didn't expect this certain scenario. So if, for example, and this is a hypothetical, if, for example, pulling the trigger was what happened, let me give the example I've used a million times. A man, and I hate to make this sexist, but I'm going to do it anyways because it's the scenario we've seen play out in America a million times. A man beats the shit out of his wife all the time on a regular basis. He gets angry, he gets drunk, he beats the shit out of his wife. One can argue, why doesn't she just leave him? Why doesn't she just divorce? But let's say she just continues to take it and he keeps promising he won't do it again. And a while goes by and he doesn't do it again. But then one night he comes back after promising it'll never happen again. And he's in a drunken rage and she did something wrong and he's going to kick her ass again. And she happens to be 2 feet away from a firearm. And she picks up the firearm and says, no fucking more. You're not beating my ass and breaking my arm and sending me to the hospital again. This is the last fucking time. You step towards me, I will blow your ass away. Now, if she blows her husband away, what's going to happen in the courtroom? The prosecution's going to say, Your Honor, did she or did she not pick up the weapon? Yes, she did. Did she have a moment where she could have changed her mind? Yes, she could have. Did she fire the weapon anyways and kill our client? Yes, she did. Well, then she's guilty of murder. End of fucking story. And a jury might say, no, we understand why she shot him. So not guilty. That kind of shit happens. It's called justifiable homicide. It happens all the time. So that's the kind of situation. It gets a little more nuanced when you have a situation where did Brian Koberger's policies, or Brian Koberger, I just mixed my stories again. Did Brian Thompson's policies as the CEO of United Healthcare cost thousands, if not millions of lives because of the policies of denying claims for people who needed insurance? And was he not then therefore killing people over and over again through their policies to make profits for their shareholders? If a person decides to kill one human being to save the lives of thousands or potentially millions, would a jury see that as justifiable homicide? If so, then it's not considered murder. So that's the kind of situation. And I understand why it would be very confusing. You're going to get your teeth kicked in by your friends and be like, I can't believe you're justifying murder, that you ever think it's acceptable to kill somebody. And yet those same people might be for the death penalty and are saying, hey, good thing they were wanting to kill Brian Koberger. I wish they would have killed him. Funny that justifiable homicide in that case is okay, that if he commits murders, then it's justified for us to kill him. But if Brian Thompson kills people, it's not justified to kill him. So again, it's a very nuanced thing. It's very difficult. I will try to be your voice to explain how people feel about the matter. I'm not even telling you how I feel about it. I'm just telling you how people would feel about it, and I'll be that voice for you. All right. All right. What else can I share with you? I did a big video today about Brian Koberger. I had a big video. This video is what I'm talking about. It's not getting the traction that it probably should. Warrantless searches. Do the ends justify the means? Did the FBI illegally spy on Brian Koberger? One of my users pointed out that the federal government has been using a provision of the FISA Act, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, to loophole spying on Americans. Provision 702 allows the federal government, like the FBI, to spy on Americans illegally without warrants and without proper search and seizure protocols to illegally collect data on United States citizens if they can say that it's somehow related to terrorism and they accidentally scooped up your data. And when they accidentally scoop up your data, they can then query that data and put you at crimes that you would normally have not been able to put at because they have data on you that they wouldn't normally have because they couldn't get a warrant. Did they do something illegal? So we talked about it in detail. I read this big article right here from the Electronic Frontier, newly published FISC opinion is the best evidence for why Congress must end Section 702, which is the provision that allows the FBI to continue to illegally and warrantlessly search with backdoor searches United States American citizens. I explained how, by the way, the director of a big, huge data processing plant in Utah stepped down because the data plant back in 2009 was spying on U.S. soldiers overseas having sex chats with their wife on the phone, taking a break, talking to their wife, getting a little dirty on the phone, and then people in a room would all huddle together and listen in and get their jollies off listening to a husband and wife have an intimate moment. Maybe she sends her husband some titty pictures. Guess what? Everybody's collected around a table looking at pictures of this soldier's tits. Why is that okay? Oh, because he's in a foreign country and he might be involved in a sensitive country. Therefore, we are just doing a terrorist surveillance and surveilling a U.S. citizen fighting for your fucking country. We're going to surveil him and spy on his wife and spy on you and get into every part of his life and then laugh and joke. That director, thank God, stepped down and said, I can't do this shit. We are going sideways in America. We are spying on Americans, on soldiers, and acting like it's somehow acceptable because, well, they might be related to terrorists. Bullshit. You know they're not related to terrorists. It's disgusting. And if we keep letting it happen, our country is gone as far as this idea that we have freedom in this country. We're not free if your country can spy on you at any time they want to and then put you in a crime if they want to, whether you did it or not. Now, that's the question. Did the government just simply find out illegally that Brian Koberger did what he did, or did they use information that they shouldn't have had to put him at a crime that he didn't do? That's the million-dollar question. All right, what else do we have? Any other questions, comments, concerns? What time is it now? I got about 30 minutes left in me, and I don't have a scripted show tonight, so we can just put this back on screen. Just to kind of put as a placeholder. Any other comments, questions? Somebody says, Julia Rose says, I've listened to 30 seconds. Earlier, I was going to comment on another of your videos that I prefer, the fired up cursing DA. Was I not fired up and cursing in the video that you did? I don't even understand what you mean. You only listened to 30 seconds because I wasn't fired up and cursing because I normally am. I think I probably got cursing in that video. I curse in every video, I think. I used to apologize every single time I dropped the F-bomb. I've stopped apologizing every time I use the F-bomb. I don't know if that's going to make people less endeared to me or more endeared to me, but I just was like, I can't keep apologizing every single time I drop an F-bomb. I drop them too often. So can I really be sorry if I keep dropping them all the time? Because I probably could do better if I truly was sorry. Although I don't drop them as often as, I don't know. Anyways, I do try to curtail myself a little bit, but I also don't apologize so much when I drop one. What else do we have? Comments, questions, or concerns? It's a low night. Tell me what I can do to make these nights a little busier. Although maybe we like the intimate feeling, because the intimate feeling, guess what? I get to actually answer questions and get to your questions. Let's see. The video about murder infatuation. It just turned into the light. So yeah, I think you're talking about the video that I made that's called Murder Art. That's about Rex Heuermann. It's about his daughter, Victoria Heuermann, who was obsessed with macabre art. By the way, if you're interested in that topic, I do encourage you to watch that video when you get time. And Pete Altieri from Murder Metal Mayhem and I are doing a special tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, all on that whole concept. The murder era, as I call it, the 1980s, when Friday the 13th and Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street were big, and audiences would literally laugh when people were grotesquely murdered, and when teenagers would be making out in a house and somebody would spear them all the way through their bodies and pin them to the floor, and we'd all laugh because we thought it was fucking funny. It was a different time back then. We would watch people horrifically slaughtered and laugh about it, and it got to the point when in Nightmare on Elm Street where Freddy would make jokes about things and we'd laugh. We'd think it was humorous. He'd kill somebody in a horrific manner, and then he'd make a joke about it, making fun of their death, and we'd be like, that's funny. did that warp some of us? Did it warp America? And did Rex Heuermann, who's the alleged Long Island serial killer, who's the same age as myself essentially, and Pete Altieri, we're older gentlemen, and so was LISK, Rex Heuermann, did that era warp some people? Or was that just a product of the time? Did his daughter become warped? Is it a product of the time? Did we normalize in America murder and death and think that somehow it was just okay to joke about, laugh about, not a big deal? All right, Renee had a comment above on UHC. This one? The thing with Brian Thompson, a lot of policies and processes isn't solely the CEO's decision. Organizations that large have many C-suite executives in the decision-making process. If that's your, was that your question? Let me see. That didn't seem like a question, but it may be what you wanted me to address. Let me double check. So all I can say about that is this: there are people so how do I explain this? So it's kind of like, and I hate making this analogy, but it's one that everyone can relate to. It's like during the Nuremberg trials of the Nazi Germany, when soldiers would say, "I'm not to blame. I was just following orders." That's the same kind of idea. No one person is responsible for anyone's death. And that's what the logic is for people to say it's not appropriate to kill the CEO of a United Healthcare company because he's not independently pulling the trigger. He's not the one doing it. So no one can be held accountable because it's a big global thing. The shareholders want it. The CEO wants it. The CEO's minions down below and lower level managers want it. So you can't put any one person on trial because it's not that one person's choice. It's a bigger thing. So therefore, the same kind of thing happened in Nazi Germany. You can't hold the soldier accountable for putting people in a gas chamber, for example, in this scenario, because he's just following orders. It wasn't his choice. He was doing what he was told to do. Same kind of logic can be on Brian Thompson. Brian Thompson was hired to make money for his shareholders. That process included, by the way, doing things to deny claims at a higher rate so that the company would make more money and the shareholders would make money. It was just his job. And literally people will say, how could you dare kill somebody for doing their job? Brian Thompson was hired to make money for the shareholders, and he was fucking good at it. How the hell could you kill somebody for being good at their job? Well, if your job is to make money off of the death of other human beings, hiding behind policies that say, hey, I'm not the one that killed your grandma. The policy killed your grandma. No, I didn't write the policy. I just approved the policy. Where do you draw the line? By the way, I want to point out here on the screen, the Senate investigation report. In 2022, the U.S. Senate Finance Committee reported on Medicare Advantage denials. It was a Finance Committee Chairman, Ron Wyden. They talked about how the report criticized Medicare Advantage plans like, top of the list, United Healthcare, Humana, and others, for inappropriately denying care for elderly Americans. Widespread use of algorithmic decision-making that sometimes led to premature discharge and denial of rehab. So, again, someone could make the argument, Brian Thompson didn't kill anybody. The algorithm killed people. The AI program that he approved to deny people's claims would kill people. And I don't know about the C-level suite thing. That the C-suite level part, if you're talking about that. Okay, I'm not talking about the directors, the vice president, etc. I'm talking about CEOs, CFOs. Oh, I see the C's. I see what you're saying by the C's. Again, here's the logic, Renee, and you may not agree with me. And that's okay. I love you anyways. You've been around from day one, so I don't have any beef with you, Renee. But here's the thing. If the CEO of the company, who's the top position, if the CEO of the company isn't responsible for anything that happens in his company, then who the fuck is? Because again, if you put it on lower level managers, the lower level managers say, I'm just taking directions from the CEO. If you go to the CEO and say, why are you going to blame me? This is a decision of the lower level managers. It's passing the buck. No one wants to say that they're the one that did it. And so ultimately, you can see why some Americans might say, if you had to pick somebody, if you had to pick somebody as being responsible for why we're killing Americans through policies, who would it be? And you could understand maybe, or maybe not, that somebody might decide the top of the food chain is about as far as you can go. Who's the CEO of the company? Who ultimately has to approve everything that happens in your company? The CEO. Everything happens based on the CEO. The CEO meets with lower level managers. They tell him what they're going to do. And he says, yes, go forward and do it. The CEO is ultimately in charge of everything that happens in that company. So one can argue that he's doing that. And Renee, I get it too, by the way. And again, I'm not having an argument with Renee. I want to make sure that you guys know that, and I hope Renee understands that as well. I'm not having an argument with Renee. We're doing this for education purposes. I understand. She's not saying Brian Thompson's not responsible. I'm just saying it's not all black and white. 100% agree with you. This issue is not black and white. Changing healthcare in America and having the broken system fixed is not black and white. The government has been trying to fix this problem for a long time, and no matter what they do, the industry finds a way around it. It is not black and white. No one person is doing it. It's an entire systemic problem. What I'm saying, and I think you may agree, is that you can understand why an individual might decide that I can't fight the entire fucking system, but I can take my rage out on a person. And whether you agree with that logic or not isn't the question. The question is, can you understand, can a jury understand why a person might have decided that Brian Thompson represents everything that the system is broken about? And that's all. And you're right, it's nuanced. It can't be all that one person's problem. It is a big global problem. But how do you fight the whole system? It's not by passing legislation. It's not by protesting. It's not by putting new people in office. They've been doing that forever, and it never changes. Protests don't work. Legislation doesn't work. It's been proven over and over again. We read a whole book, An American Sickness by Elizabeth Rosenthal, that talked about legislation has never worked. Every time they pass legislation to fix the problem, the insurance industry and the medical industry as a whole finds a way to loophole that and make even more money off of the legislation designed to curb out of control spending in America. We have the most expensive healthcare system in the entire world, and we do not have the best healthcare in the world. Why is that the case? The system is broken, it is corrupt, and politicians are corrupt, and the system is corrupt, and it's broken and it's out of control. So you can understand perhaps why somebody might decide to try to fight back. And maybe you don't agree with their processes. I don't know. I don't even think, Renee, that you agree or disagree with the process. I'm just saying it's a nuanced thing. And can a jury of 12 people understand? Can one person on that jury understand why somebody might come to the conclusion that taking out a Brian Thompson might have been an act of self-defense? So I'm excited about spending a little time with Luigi Mangione. I'm very excited. I did tell you, by the way, I've been writing letters to Luigi Mangione for 2 months or over 2 months, and he finally has received one of my letters. We're hopeful that he's going to write back. He does sometimes write back to people. We're hopeful not because we're celebrating murder. We're not celebrating vigilante justice or anything like that. We want to create a conversation because this is a major case in America, and we want to be able to get a connection with a major player behind the scenes and get to know the man behind the story. So that's what that's about. We need to hear from Cy Ray, someone says. 100%. I would love to hear from Cy Ray. Again, I'm not sure if he doesn't already have an interview slated with somebody, although there's all kinds of rumors going on. Someone said that Brian Koberger is writing a book or has already agreed to a book deal. I don't think that's true. Supposedly he's going to go on an interview right away after the thing. I don't think that's true. That's been debunked. The rumors are flying everywhere. What is going to happen, and in fact, I think it happened today. Is this the 17th? It's the 16th. So it's tomorrow. Tomorrow, I think there's going to be a hearing about lifting the non-dissemination order, which means that people will be allowed to talk in the Brian Koberger Idaho 4 situation. It doesn't mean necessarily the documents will be unsealed. What it means is people who have been told not to talk, i.e. law enforcement, attorneys like Ann Taylor, Bill Thompson, they will be allowed to talk if the non-dissemination order is lifted. And so when people are allowed to talk, everyone's going to start talking. Here's the thing. They're going to talk, and they're going to talk, and they're going to talk, and the documents proving whether what they're saying and talking about are true or not may still remain sealed. And so at the end of the day, you're going to have to decide, were they telling you the truth when they started running their mouth? Or are they just running their mouth about shit that isn't true, and we won't find out isn't true until the documents get unsealed, and they may never get unsealed. Is it better to send a letter than an e-message? I don't know that that's the case. Google user, I don't know if it's better to send a letter than an e-message. I chose that method. Inmates, for example, like Luigi Mangione, has an access to a program called True Links. maybe I'll need to find if there are ways to electronically send the mail, because I'm spending money on stamps the old-fashioned way. That's how I think Luigi Mangione is receiving a bunch of his mail. It still works in America, and that's what I tried. But maybe there's a better method. I would sure prefer to type. I do type my message anyways and print it out. I'd rather send an email. But the inmates themselves can't get email. But there are systems like TrueLinks that allows you to email inmates if you have their TrueLinks number. That's something that Brian, for example, in Luigi Mangione's case, he's only got a select number of people that he can give TrueLinks data to. And so therefore, if you get lucky enough, I hate to use that word because I don't know if we should be lucky to have communications with Luigi Mangione, but if Luigi Mangione likes you enough and decides to make you one of his friends, he can give you access to TrueLinks, and you can essentially send him email. And then he can check the computer, and it's kind of like an email system. It doesn't have internet access, I don't think, where he can go and surf the internet, but it does allow you to send quicker correspondence and not have to send it through snail mail and then hope the mailroom gets to it. It'll be a much quicker and much more efficient way of writing back and forth with an inmate. Yeah, this area, Julia Rose, is a little bit nuanced. Only BK can speak for himself. Idaho can stop him from writing a book. You might have meant they cannot stop him from writing a book. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's a little nuanced. Most places do not allow an inmate to profit off of their story. So you can't commit a crime and then make profit and make money on it from jail by selling the rights to your story. Like I'll tell you what happened if you give me money from my book. That's not going to happen. But could he tell his story? Sure. However, there are states, I think Idaho is one of them, that will not basically allow the press to talk to Bryan Kohberger. So if you're not a friend, i.e., maybe if you can argue that Catherine Ramsland, his professor at DeSales University, who wrote the book on BTK, if she can pull off saying that she's a friend of Bryan Kohberger's, and if Bryan Kohberger gives her permission as one of his friends to contact her in prison, she may be able to have a friend conversation with Bryan Kohberger and then share her thoughts with her conversation with her friend and write a book about it. Yeah, Google user says he probably likes getting real mail, but they copy them nowadays. They don't even get to have the original letter. Kind of sad to see they go by the wayside. Yeah, I mean, and part of the reason why, and you probably know this, is that people have done tricky things. They'll use ink with acid, for example, or whatever laced in it, so that the inmate could lick the ink and get high. People will smuggle in contraband on paper that's soaked in acid, so they can eat the paper and get high. And so it just became a practice in a lot of places to photocopy the letters and not give them the original paper, because people on the outside are getting clever to smuggle in contraband to inmates through letters, perfumes, things like that can carry substances that can be used to get intoxicated, because there's a problem with people smuggling in intoxicants to inmates. I don't know how much I want to go down this right now, Michelle Weber, but I remember when Luigi Mangione acted it, said he was on an e-bike. Then there were pictures of him or a doppelganger pedaling an e-bike. I think there were more than one person involved. That's the very, very, very first way I think that I started with this case. Did Luigi Mangione do the crime, or was there a group of individuals that pulled off a Luigi shuffle, if you will? The shooter went into Central Park and went off camera for quite some time. They lost the shooter. By the way, new information has come out. Remember, I don't know if you've seen the pictures of the backpack with the Monopoly money in it that was found in Central Park, but I recently found out that backpack was supposedly found in the water in the pond in the park, and that divers had to fish out the backpack. But I've seen pictures of the backpack sitting on the ground, not looking wet. So now I'm questioning which one was it. Did they find it in the water, or did they find it just laying somewhere in the park? Because somebody now clearly has stated that divers recovered the backpack full of Monopoly money. Anyways, the point being is that the shooter went into the park and knew that they were going off camera. The shooter knew that let's break it down momentarily. I said I wasn't sure how far I was going to go down it, apparently further than I was going to. The shooter who shot Brian Thompson pretty much walked away from the scene, jogged across the street, got onto an e-bike, rode into Central Park, the one place where they can go off camera, because again, there's cameras everywhere in New York, but the one place that oddly enough there isn't a lot of cameras is Central Park. They rode into Central Park and went off camera for quite some time. And then an individual is seen leaving the park at a completely different area, different street, on an e-bike wearing similar clothes. law enforcement wants you to believe that that's the same exact person. But they found a bag of clothes inside the park. They found the Monopoly bag inside the park. And the question becomes the million-dollar question. Is the shooter who went into the park the same person who rode out the park? Is it even the same person that is Luigi Mangione who got into the taxi? Is it the same person that they picked up in Altoona, Pennsylvania? Is it the same person that checked into the hostel? There's an argument to be made that that camera does not have continuous footage of the shooter, and the shooter may be somebody other than Luigi Mangione. So correct. Julia Rose says, like Securus in Texas, the email still costs a stamp. Yes, profit. Texas stopped me, but they let me interview for Discovery that covered my story. That's interesting. I got to hear more about your story, Julia. I forgot. You have an interesting story, and I haven't gotten into the depths. I would love to have a private conversation. It doesn't have to be private. I'd love to have a more detailed conversation to understand your story, because I remember now, you're bringing up my mind. You have a really interesting story, and I just keep saying, we should talk someday. We should talk someday. Let's make it a priority somehow, if you're willing to talk to me. All right. Didn't you hear the Epstein files are a hoax? Good Lord. That's a topic I could talk a lot about, but I won't, because I'm not officially covering that story, and I don't want to get on that rant right now. We've got only 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes left, something like that, 8 or 9 minutes. So I don't want to get on a rant necessarily. I'm going to try to back it down just a hair. So Michelle Forrester, I think, let me clarify this. You remember something about the money they supposedly found in Altoona backpack being wet, and Luigi Mangione saying it was planted. So let me tell you what I remember, and it's a little different. So when Luigi Mangione was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and they inventoried the backpack that was in his possession, one of the things that they said was in the backpack when they listed the inventory to him during his arraignment was, and we found about $8,000 US cash and $2,000 foreign currency in your backpack. To which, of all the things that were listed, Luigi Mangione leaned forward and said something on the stand to the effect of, I don't know anything about the money, that must have been planted. That was a comment supposedly that Luigi Mangione made on camera. It was the only thing he argued about, all the things they listed, is that there wasn't cash in his backpack, and he has no idea what they're talking about with cash in his backpack. I don't remember anything being said about it being wet, and so, but I do know a little bit what you're talking about Luigi Mangione saying that the money was planted in specific. And I think they used the money as an issue to say he's a flight risk. He was planning on leaving the country. That's why he had foreign currency. He was going to leave the country, and therefore it allowed them to put him in chains right away and no bond because he was a flight risk and was planning on leaving the country. So whether or not that really happened or not, we don't know. Woon, I hope you're talking about my channel, number one in true crime. I don't think I'm number one in true crime, but yes, please hit the like button and like this channel. Subscribe. I know some of you, I know one person in here already was like, Brian Carberger's a piece of shit and a moron. You're probably not here anymore. You probably didn't like my answer, but if you're still here, give it a like. Watch the show. Oh yeah, and Woon said that they grew up in Massapequa and lived 5 minutes from Rex Heuermann. We should talk. We should talk. You know, my email address is available for people to reach out to me. I'm trying to get some good insider information, some things that maybe you can tell me to look into that maybe your average Joe Blow sitting in the armchair doesn't think about. So again, devilsadvocates2024@gmail.com is my email address. If you want to shoot me some information, start a private dialogue. If things go well, I'll give you my phone number and we'll talk about it. Or I'll give you a Discord, we'll talk about it. Whatever the case may be, I'm pretty open and accessible. So let's talk. Yeah, Julie says they lost chain of custody again. Besides, if it had been cash, it would not have been in the backpack. Maybe taped to your ankle. That money thing will never be an issue in court. I don't think the money thing is going to be an issue in court either. I don't think it's going to even make the official inventory list myself. Although they did list it in his arraignment, because that's why he complained about it. But they may drop that one because it may have been bullshit. Last minute questions. We've only got about 4 or 5 minutes. I'm taking last minute questions. Super small. Sometimes I've topped 200 by myself where we have 29 people. Am I doing something wrong? Why is it not? Maybe I'm not engaging tonight. It's okay. I'm not going to take it super personally. The channel's growing just fine. I'm excited about the future, but I do want to know if maybe I'm not hitting the mark on the lives, because I know people who go live. I won't say any names. I know people who go live, and every time they go live, hundreds and hundreds of people show up to the lives. Hundreds of people. I go live. It's a good day if I have over 50. So what am I doing wrong? Tell me if I can improve anything. In the meantime, I'm not bitching because the channel's doing fine. Do you have any idea when the gag order is going to be lifted in Idaho? Yes, let me explain this. This is my thought process. I laid this out in a previous thing, but let's end on this question. Here's the deal. Tomorrow is a discussion about the lifting of the non-dissemination order. What the non-dissemination order is basically silencing people from talking about the case who might have information. This would allow people like Kathy Mabbitt, the coroner, to publicly speak on the case. Police officers like Corporal Payne to be able to speak on the case. Retired police officers like Chief Fry to be able to speak on the case. Attorneys like Ann Taylor to be able to speak on the case. Steve Gonzalez, who has not been able to speak a word for 2.5 years, would finally be able to say something. That's sarcasm, by the way. Steve Gonzalez has never allowed himself to be shut up by the gag order, but other families have. Those families can come out and talk now as well. Everybody and their dog will be allowed to talk about the case when the non-dissemination order is lifted. There's a meeting about the lifting of the non-dissemination order. That doesn't mean the non-dissemination order gets lifted tomorrow, but it may. I don't expect any documents to be unsealed. That's a whole different process. And I should say, I don't expect them to be unsealed until sentencing. Sentencing does not happen until July 23rd. So tomorrow, the non-dissemination order may be lifted and people will be allowed to talk about the case. Talk. Documents that have been sealed and redacted likely will stay sealed and redacted until at least the sentencing is over. When Brian Koberger has it, because again, at sentencing, Brian Koberger, there is a scenario in which Brian Koberger could change his plea again. Not likely, don't even think that's a possibility, but not likely. He could potentially change his plea again because the plea can be changed right up till sentencing. So I don't think they're going to unseal any documents until the sentencing is done. But even then, listen to how the process probably works. It is likely that any documents that have been sealed by a court order, either the previous judge, or the current judge, Stephen Hippler, those are sealed by a judge. And what will require is a process to unseal those documents. Someone, and it could be someone in the public, I think, could be somebody else, needs to request to the court, I would like to see this document numbered such and such, sealed on such and such day, to be unsealed. And then the court will review that request and decide, is it okay now to unseal that document now that there's been a request? So I do not expect you to see anything automatically like all documents are going to become unsealed. I don't think. It could, but I don't think that's going to happen. What's going to happen is people are going to have to file requests to unseal documents, and then a judge is going to have to review that and decide on a case-by-case basis whether unsealing that document is appropriate. In some cases, and here's some examples that have been given. Victims' wounds, for example, might be something that they decide is not something the public needs to know. You don't need to know how many times somebody was stabbed or in what places they were stabbed. And so they may decide that despite the fact that you want to know exactly where they were stabbed, they might not unseal that document. Now, let me break down some more nuances. Kathy Mabbitt, the coroner who did the autopsy report, she probably will be allowed to speak about it because the non-dissemination order will be lifted and she'll be allowed to speak about it. So if Kathy Mabbitt wants to go on national TV and talk to CNN, Fox, Howard Bloom, whoever the hell she wants to, and tell you what she saw in the autopsy that she performed, she could talk to you about it. But if you want to verify her facts about what she says and see the document itself, it's possible the judge will be like, sorry, we don't need to unseal that document. It's too painful. Kathy Mabbitt can talk about it all day long, but we're not going to unseal it. So understand, it is a very complex and nuanced situation about what's going to be seen and how. Okay, I think we're done. I think we're done. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Very small, intimate group. I appreciate it. I might, because I'm alone, I'm lonely. I've had a thing or two to relax, I might jump on Discord and hang out. So if you're not familiar, I've got a Discord channel. By the way, I'll put a banner up real quick in case you're thinking about joining me. I don't know if I'm going to be there. I think I might. That Discord channel right there, scrolling across the bottom, which has got a funky thing, that's where I do my backstage and Discord channel. You might want to join me. I'm going to hang out. Hopefully you already are a member of the Discord channel. But I'm feeling a little frisky. I might go hang out for a little bit of my Discord channel. If nobody's in my Discord channel, because again, a lot of people just hang out in somebody else's Discord channel, and you know who I'm talking about. If everyone's over there and nobody's at my place, I'll go hang out in that person's Discord channel. Great person. The only reason I'm not saying the name is because you all know who it is. It's kind of an inside joke. I'm trying to become as big of a boy as that individual. We'll eventually get there. In the meantime, thank you so much for coming tonight. Renee, all love. I think there was no animosity between you and I, even though that you and I kind of had that exchange. I don't think that was, I think you know and I know there was no fight there. We were having a discussion. So thank you, Renee, as always, for supporting the channel and being a regular supporter, and appreciate you for you've been there from day one. All right, everybody, have a great night. Loved the live. See you later.